We last saw Gendry at the end of Season 3 rowing rather uncertainly towards King's Landing. But is he returning in Season 7? And if so, why? What role does he have to play in the show's finale? Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to In Deep Geek, particularly if you are a first-time viewer. Please do consider subscribing if you enjoy the video. Gendry's fate has been manipulated by others for his entire life, for good and ill, and most of those who have done it are still alive today. He may have thought he was going to be able to just disappear, well away from the constant death and deceit of the Game of Thrones, but we're going to look at how and why Gendry might reappear, and what his fate might be in Seasons 7 and 8. Gendry was born to a tavern wench at the beginning of Robert Baratheon's reign. He grew up not knowing who his father was, and his mother died when he was still young. But as the king's bastard son, even as an unacknowledged one, he was a valuable commodity, and it soon became clear that someone was keeping an eye out for him as he grew. An unknown person paid for his apprenticeship as a blacksmith, paying double the usual fee while hiding his face. This person isn't named in the books or the show, but the best bet here is Varys, simply as he is the most likely person to know of Gendry's existence through his spy network, this being before Littlefinger's rise to power. Varys would have had a keen interest in keeping an eye on any potential claimants to the throne, and although he keeps it well hidden, he has a strong desire to care for the broken and the innocent in society. As an orphan himself, it is easy to see him taking pity on the young Gendry rather than have him killed or ostracised. So Gendry became an apprentice blacksmith, and there he grew up among the common folk in Flea Bottom, becoming, by all accounts, a very promising smith. It wasn't until Jon Arryn and then Ned Stark began to investigate the bloodline of Robert's children that the lords in the Red Keep started to pay attention to him. When Ned met him, he knew at once that he was Robert's son. The resemblance was so strong. So when Robert died, and Cersei began her purge of all possible threats to the throne, Gendry was an obvious target. But once more, it was his anonymous benefactor who saved him. And in the books it is clear that it is Varys who arranged for his removal from the city. Sending Gendry to the wall was the simplest way to save him. By taking the black, he would be disavowing all claims to titles and the chance of having children, like Aemon Targaryen and Jon Snow did before him. Again, this is totally consistent with what we know of Varys, moving behind the scenes to protect those who need it. Unknown to him, Varys' actions also saved Arya. The only reason Yoren was still in King's Landing when Ned was executed was because of the arrangements to take Gendry. And if he hadn't been there, he wouldn't have been able to help Arya escape either. So there's a real chance that Varys' compassion saved 2 lives that day, not just 1. Although much of the action from Season 2 is taken from the books, it starts becoming a bit harder to draw parallels from this point onwards. The show has conflated the stories of 2 of Robert's bastard children into 1. In the books, after escaping Harrenhal, Gendry stayed on with the Brotherhood Without Banners, being knighted by Beric Dondarrion. It is one of Robert's other bastard children, Edric Storm, who was captured and taken to Dragonstone. Edric, unlike Gendry, was recognised by Robert, and was fostered at Storm's End by Renly Baratheon. Melisandre used leeches on him, like she did on Gendry in the show, and Davos set him free on a boat to Essos. I think it's reasonable to assume that the show will continue to conflate these 2 characters, making Gendry the only surviving child of Robert Baratheon. As we left Gendry in the show, he had an impressive set of benefactors and friends, Arya, Varys and Davos, but he was setting off towards King's Landing on his own, where he was going to disappear into the backways and hovels of Flea Bottom, hoping never to be found. So what has he been doing for 3 years? Well, he's probably been doing just that, Maybe he's taken on a new identity, or has been trying to eke out a living with his blacksmithing skills. If he returns, it's likely because of one of only 3 reasons. Firstly, he may have taken the time to reflect on his true identity, and decided that he wanted to take what was rightfully his, the Baratheon name, and with it Dragonstone or even the Iron Throne itself. However, I think this is unlikely. Gendry never showed any ambition in the show, not even when he was told who his father was. He seems to take pride in his work and care for his friends, but never any vaunted ideas of what power he might gain for himself. For Gendry to turn around now and actively seek to become a lord would be a complete change in character for him. Secondly, Cersei, or more accurately Qyburn's little birds, might discover Gendry back in King's Landing. As the spitting image of Robert Baratheon in his youth, he is quite recognisable after all. If Cersei did find him, her response would be swift. She is in no mood to allow any potential rivals to the throne to live. However, I think it's quite unlikely that Gendry will be found this way. As far as Cersei is aware, Gendry died back on the King's Road when a force of soldiers attacked Euron's caravan of recruits. One of the boys who was killed happened to be carrying Gendry's helmet, and Arya persuaded the soldiers that he was Gendry. So Cersei's spies will not be looking for any more of Robert's bastards. As far as they are concerned, they are all dealt with. Which leaves the third possible reason that Gendry might reappear. Because Davos, the only person who has any idea where he is, goes to find him. The question here, of course, is why would he? Well, given his recent experience with Shireen, I think his default position will be to just leave Gendry alone for as long as he thinks he is safest there. But times change, and I could see him being persuaded that there is one place where Gendry would be even safer. In Dragonstone, as Lord Baratheon. Let's see how this could work. I think we'll see Davos as Jon's effective Hand of the King of the North, travelling with him to meet Daenerys after she has landed with her invading army. With Tyrion advising Dany, I could see her trying to broker a deal with Jon to support her claim to the Iron Throne. It would, after all, be a lot easier for her to come to an agreement with the North than invade it. Tyrion will, I suspect, be keen to strike deals with as many of the major houses as possible before having to face off against Cersei. But because of the carnage that has been taking place over the previous few years, this is harder than you might think. Some noble houses have been, to all intents and purposes, wiped out. Most notably, the Baratheon family have been completely decimated. While Dany will no doubt be pleased that most of those who were centrally involved in the overthrow of her own family 2 decades ago are now gone, it leaves a massive power vacuum in the Stormlands. As Queen, it would be for her to appoint a new Lord Paramount of the Stormlands. She could create an entirely new noble house as a reward for one of her lieutenants, promote one of the vassals in the Crown Lands, or find someone who could carry on the Baratheon name, but without any of the baggage of being involved in Robert's rebellion. Varys will remember the bastard boy he tried to save from Cersei's wrath in King's Landing. If Davos decides that King's Landing is no longer a safe place for Gendry, and let's face it, with Cersei blowing up random sections of the city, it may not be, he might be tempted to try to bring Gendry back. He may even do it in person. As a boy, he grew up in Flea Bottom, so he would have a better chance than most to track him down, and it's a fair bet that Gendry wouldn't believe just any old envoy from Daenerys. So perhaps there might be a happy ending for Gendry. I'm sure he will have to do some great deed to prove his loyalty to Dany and earn her seal on his legitimization as Robert Baratheon's son, but there is a real chance now that the orphan boy from Flea Bottom might end up as Lord Baratheon, Lord Paramount of the Crown Lands. This would, of course, mean that he is suddenly one of the most eligible men in the entirety of Westeros. Young, single lords are quite a rarity after so many years of war. Even Daenerys herself would have to consider him as a match. Her claim to the throne would be increased immensely if she were married to the only surviving Baratheon, ensuring her descendants could trace their lineage through both Targaryen and Baratheon dynasties. But Gendry's status would also make him an eligible match for Arya when she re-emerges from her killing spree. I hope the showrunners can avoid this. Arya's character arc should not leave her wanting to be a noble lady. It isn't what she wanted as a young girl, and it certainly won't be what she wants as a grown woman. What do you think? How and why do you think Gendry will return? What role do you think he will have in the next 2 seasons? Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like it. If you want to see more like this one, please click on the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel in other ways, please check out my Patreon page. Thanks again. That's all for this time. I'll see you again soon.